coach because I'll be teaching this class. This class is going to be about the Naiji, and this class is actually an outreach program of the Naiji Temple. So this also acts as the beginning of creating a temple, a home, a crib for the Naiji of planet Earth. All the Naiji of planet Earth, all you wonderful, wonderful humans of that particular mojo, the mojo I am, Naiji. This is for you. This is to teach you what you are and how you work and how to get out there in the world, and also teach others how to respect us. And that brings in the second reason we're here and the other audiences that could be watching this, which is fans of the Naiji. Those who have studied Podler theory, they are familiar with their mojo, and they are familiar with the mojo Naiji, and they'd like to get to know more about it. And we'd like to offer that so that the Naiji can get along very, very well with the rest of the tribe of humanity. That also brings in to those who are not familiar with Podler theory. You may have found us because you are a curious seeker. You need to be a friendly curious seeker, because this is a special place, this is a sacred place, so the Naiji can feel safe, they can learn about themselves and also teach others. So imagine that we have in our minds here a temple, and it is dedicated to the Naiji, but we have a classroom area that actually is open to the public, and the public can see some of the classes that we do. So both that they can be educated on the way the Naiji learns, and actually the Naiji can meet and greet and talk with them about the Naiji ways. But that is the focus here, Naiji and how they work and what's going on with them. But you'll need to be respectfully curious. If you do that, then we would like to be very generous with our information. But we are shy creatures, us Naiji, although we can pretend to be otherwise. So, respectfully curious, and then you can stay and hopefully make some of the best friends you'll ever meet. Watching this series, the Naiji Temple series, will be confusing to you to a large degree if you are not familiar with the basic terminology and concepts and principles of Podler theory. So we have a whole series, a vlog series called Podler Planet, which is to teach you the actual general principles that apply to all humans and all mojo designs and how they work, such as powers, human design, things of that nature. For example, I'm a Naiji. You need to know what Na and Ji are. You need to know why that makes me the mojo that I am, and that will be something that you'll learn in general principles in the Podler Planet series. So you want to make sure that you're watching all of those episodes, because I'll be referencing those principles. So once those episodes come out in Naiji Temple, we'll be talking about how it works for Naiji. But the given is you understand all the general principles that have been put out that apply to everyone. Also, as teaching about being a Naiji, you're going to need to know how you read one. How does one spot one? Particularly for the fans of Naiji, you want to know how you read one. However, reading is not going to be the focus here, although we'll be teaching how to read Naiji, and also as a Naiji, how you use your powers, Naiji, Zai, and Vi, how you use those powers to read, because they're different than the other powers of the psyche. Therefore, we have an entire series dedicated to this. It's called The Mojo Show, and it really focuses on, within the whole general principles of Podler theory, how to read mojo, specifically how you read the soul designs of other humans. So we will be touching on that frequently here. The cues that Naiji give off, all the subtle little riffs and different ways their mojo gets used. And you'll need to be familiar with the current general principles of mojo reading. So we have a show for that. And you want to focus your attention on those principles so you can apply them to being a Naiji. Also, there will be a whole series, vlog series called Empire of Enlightenment, and that will be dedicated to the Podler principles and concepts that are focused on applying it in the world, which brings into mind the other models of thought that are allies and competitors of our thought. Just like any time you bring a new scientific theory in, there are other theories that are already in the marketplace, and so you want to see how that works and how you line up with them. One thing to throw in there, I am very, very HSP. This has been mentioned in other episodes. For this reason, I have special needs that need to be attended to as far as interacting with the public. For this reason, I have 3 of my advanced students who are in charge of this other series. Nija is working on Nija is working on the Podler Planet series. Jailin, she's working on the Mojo Show series, and Zai Neodemus, he's working on the Empire of Enlightenment show. On my show, you may see them frequently coming in on the forum boards, discussing things, helping the public get oriented, as I'm not super comfortable with actually talking out publicly. So hope you guys are cool with that, and they're very, very awesome people, and they are very, very trained, and they're doing a great job. So you'll want to actually be nice to them, and that will help me stay better connected with you. Now we'll go over sort of a synopsis or a quick orientation, a flyby of a lot of the major concepts and principles that we'll be discussing here in Naiji Temple. So all the goodies that we're going to get into, and there are quite a lot of them. Let's start with Nai. As a Naiji, that's my source power. Nai is like speculation, envisioning, making predictions, things of that nature. So it's the source power for being a Naiji, so this permeates our life. As a Naiji, this is going to be the thing that overrides everything else and flavors everything else, so you want to become very, very familiar with it and make it your friend, although it's a very mysterious friend. Next up here we have Tandem Ji, being a Naiji. It's our second power. This is going to help us connect to the world, steer it, make it go where we want, help us understand people, help us understand how they work and therefore how we should be, give us a code of conduct. Although being under Nai, it'll be a eccentric sometimes and artistic code of conduct, but it's a code of conduct and it is very important to us. Our third rank power, our offside power, is Zai. That is our internal logic. It keeps our passions and our visions from completely throwing us off the board, from dunking us in such a way that we never come back up. Without that, we would go off our rails. So it helps us to keep equilibrium, although equilibrium is not something that's ever going to be something we can keep for very long or should keep for very long, because different mojos use the powers differently and gain energy differently. Being a Naiji, that means I'm going to gain energy, we'll talk about that in a minute, from using these powers. Zai, very important to me, but it doesn't give me as much energy as over here. But without it, my momentum powers would go off the rails. So it's extremely important that I have it, and I'm very grateful that I have it. So thank you, natural law. Ooh, now we have Polar V, our fourth power over here, V. This is, I mentioned before with Zai, that is a logic-based discernment, an internal discernment, so that's how I keep equilibrium, with a logic-based discernment. Up here, you need a way to register stimulus in the world. Being a Naiji, that means I use V. And if I use V, and I'm a Naiji, guess what you use? That's right, same thing. V is how we take in the stimulus from the world, and for us it's going to be literal perceptions, kinetic perceptions. So a lot of Naiji will actually have a very strongly developed aesthetic sense. They don't necessarily have to be an artist per se, but they'll have a strong aesthetic sense. We'll also have a strong sense of visceral aversions, so that those go hand in hand. So if you're a Naiji, that may be familiar to you. Again, going back to Zai, which a lot of Naiji like to use a lot, it's like Zai, Zai, Zai. There's a reason for this. Because having V as the polar power means that the world is going to overstimulate you or hyperstimulate you a great deal, and so that has to be kind of like controlled to keep yourself from getting into trouble. That's why you need a temple, because most mojos don't have the ability to flow the way they're supposed to flow, because they get in trouble for it when they go through the learning process. The learning process to get to where they could fly like, you know, an eagle or whatever, by the time they get to that, they would have caused so much problem in their environment that it makes taking that journey seem non-viable. All humans possess the human design, which is discussed in the Podlair Planet series. As a Naiji, I have a human design, such as having Nai, Ji, Zai, and V. That's variables on a basic set of mathematical principles that apply to all humans. So I work the way I work because all the humans work the way they work. So although it's a temple about Naiji, we're also going to be studying how we can become aware of our connection to all the other humans, how we work similarly, and where our bonds are, what our connection points are, and how to accentuate them and optimize them. So it's not just going to be like Naiji is the greatest thing ever. We are. In our storyline, we are the greatest thing ever, but there are other storylines, and our ultimate goal is to merge our storylines with those other storylines of all the humans for productive harmony. And then we really have done a heroic job, and that's why we're here. As a Naiji, I gain momentum, increase my energy whenever I use conceptualizing, thinking big thoughts, trying to dream of how things could be or might have been, detective work of that nature, speculative detective work. And also Ji, when I try and figure out how humans work, why we believe the things we believe, why we do the things we do. And also moving people to what we think are better ways. Since we seem to see ways that might actually be advantageous, we want to help people get there. And then we also move people out of our way when they try and stop us from being all we can be. You know, it's important to us. It's important to everyone. As a Naiji, that means that I and all you other Naiji out there have Zai and Vi as our modulation powers. That's going to be basically logical feasibility. Our Zai is going to allow us to take the visions that we see, take the passions and opinions that we have, and see if those things are viable. Both, are they viable for logical application, and then V, do I have the energy for this? Do I have the worldly resources for this? Do I have the visceral skills to actually make that possible? And if not, could I? So there's an ongoing dialogue between the momentum of the Nai and Ji and the modulation of the Zai and Vi. But it's a dialogue that if it wasn't there, Naiji couldn't do all the great and amazing things that we can do. So we're able to do them specifically because of having those four powers, have them talk to each other, and in that way. So it can be sometimes uncomfortable, but that is in large part because of misunderstanding the process. It will take a lot of discomfort away by understanding how you work as a Naiji, and the discomfort that remains, I'm not going to lie to you, we are dissatisfied, we'll get to that in a second, but there becomes an understanding of how to live a life as a Naiji, and that feeling you get of dissatisfaction is actually your friend, your oldest, dearest friend. So it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a great thing. We have things to prove it. Yes, we do. Naiji, you can be proud of that. You can be proud of a lot of stuff. It's important to have a good understanding and relationship with your modulation powers, because when you're put under heavy stress or output, or stress from heavy output, so there is certain ways that your modulation powers will alert your momentum side that you're having a problem. And you need to be familiar with those, just like if you had a facility that you worked in, you want to be familiar with how you exit the building when certain alarms go on for fires or whatnot. So it can be quite alarming, some of the things that your modulation powers will alert you to or stress upon you, but you need to listen to them to the degree of how to alleviate the stress, and also to what your limits are, because your modulation powers have a lot to do with learning what your limits are. So it's sort of like, first know thyself, then know your limitations. That's your modulation. Your modulation powers let you know that maybe you would like to believe that people can fly, but they can't. You tried it out, you tried to do some visceral, real-world logical experiments, and it doesn't work out. But it doesn't mean it can't. Maybe if you make some wings, hand glide, it's possible, but you have to do some things. You have to modulate in order to get that flight that you were looking for. Which brings up the concept, briefly, of keening. Keening is when the modulation powers have been exerted a lot, and the state that they're in and the message they send to you. We call that keening. And the keening has various stages, which can lead into what we call stress lock. So as an IG, you're going to actually find overemphasis on logic and practicality to be de-energizing. That may surprise a lot of Naiji, because a lot of Naiji have incredibly formidable logic-based powers. A lot of them actually have very powerful visceral powers. But it's important to note where they come from, what drives them. If you overuse those powers and you don't feed them properly with the momentum powers, there are a lot of stress lock behaviors, breakdowns that will happen. You'll lose fluidity of your mind, expansiveness of mind. There are health issues that go with actually being overmodulated and keening for too long and going to stress lock. So as an IG, you may experience, for example, different physical sensations of feeling good or bad, like your energy levels fluctuate. You want to learn what causes that, because IG tend to be extremely energetic when they are lined up correctly, but when they're not, then they have very low energy. And even still, you will have swings. IG tend to have more swings in their energy levels than other mojos for a variety of reasons that we'll talk about throughout this series. As you stated earlier, we will be talking about how you read an IG. So at this point, the given is that you understand the basic principles of mojo reading, and so I'll just kind of go over them now. The first gear of mojo reading is reading the physiological cues, like how the face moves, how the hand moves, all those kinds of things, based on what's going on in the psyche, one power to one cue. So, I am an IG who has Xi and V modulation. That means when I tilt my head to the left here, when I look to my left, particularly the looking, that's the main thing to focus on. Looking up left, this left, down left, blinking to the left. That means I'm accessing my Na. It means I'm speculating. And you'll see a more cunning expression come over my face. You'll want to learn what that looks like. I am one of you if you're an IG, and if you're one of the fans, this is an IG. This is what one looks like. So whenever I'm doing that, throughout the series, know that you're seeing Na. Na is happening whenever I'm looking off to the left. I'm not looking at that wall. Now I am. I'm now looking at that wall, but I wasn't before. I'm just drifting. I'm actually disengaging from the environment. So that means I'm using my speculator. Next, Xi. I'm talking right now, particularly I'm trying to make sense to you. I'm making sentences with beginning, middle, and end. That's me using my values-based objective discernment to communicate with you, to structure thoughts in such a way that other people besides myself can understand. So look for that. I'm a basic human zoo exhibit for you. So throughout this series, whenever you see me talking like this, I'm using my Xi. Also, when I move forward, like so, when I project forward, any forward-leaning motion, particularly jutting, that's my Xi. My Xi likes to punctuate, like beginning, middle, end. See, I punctuate there? I punctuate with my hand. I punctuate it with my voice. I often will punctuate with my head a little bit. That's a use of objective discernment, and as an IG, that's my Xi. So whenever you see me doing that, I want you to feel a little red. Red, red. See that? I look off there, blue, blue. Get used to that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time teaching that as much as Jailene is in her series, but you should be familiar with that work, and I'll be referencing it a lot. And you have an example to see me in action. So I'm just saying right now, this is what you'll be seeing, as well as when we have other Naiji on this show, once they have proven themselves to be skilled enough to present themselves to the public. Next we have Xi. When you see my eyes going to the right, like this, I'm accessing my Xi. When any Naiji does that, so if you are a Naiji, that's what you're doing when you do that. If you've been read by one of our qualified readers as a Naiji, then that's what you're doing when you go to the right. Also, any of the samples that I give you on this show were given out by Jailene in her show about who the Naiji are. When you're looking at them, every single one, all the men, all the women, every single one, when they're going to the right, that's their Xi. Left, Nai, jutting, talking, and Xi. Make sense? Good. Lastly up here we have V. As an IG, I have V, as do you. That means that when I am moving my body around and animating it, that has a lot to do with your objective perception power. And so as an IG, you should learn this. My movements have a certain crispness to them that is different than the mojos that have Ni. Okay, so there are 16 basic designs. 8 of them use V, either as modulation like I do, or they use V primarily. All those mojos will actually have this crisperness in the movement, regardless of being directive or adaptive, logical or values-based. They'll have that crispness. What else? When the lifting of the carriage, that signals the V being used. You'll see sort of a flashing eyes, like this, like I've really locked on. I'm tracking like a fast-moving object, like a ball or a dog running. That's my V being used. And you'll note that all the Naiji have this exact same quality, although they use it differently, they style it differently, they have their own, dance moves. But still, that will be what happens when they perk up their eyes, when they lift their carriage, when they start to move their body. That's V. Gear 2 of Mojo reading is basically when you take two powers of the human design of a given mojo and note how that affects physiological cues. So for example, as a Naiji, my top two powers are over here. That means that I am directive. And so as a directive mojo, like all directive mojos, I have more comfortability using yang gestures. See? Directing, pointing, moving, claw-like, karate, yes? Okay. Then you have yin gesturing, which is palms in as opposed to palms out. Keeping closer to my space. I can do this, but this is less natural for me. This is actually bringing in my Zai in a way, and also my V, which is more reactive. And reacting for me is not the stronger psychic position. My stronger psychic position is more actively watching and then actively making moves over, based on what I've observed. That's what gives me energy. So for example, teaching this course, talking to you, I do get energy from that despite the fact that I am very, very nervous. For example, right now, the environment is affecting my V, and the fact that I don't want to give a bad set of instructions to you is heavily activating my Zai. So those things are actually going to reduce my energy to some degree, but I'm still getting a lot of energy because I enjoy talking about things I think are useful truths, and I like sharing them with people that I respect and admire and love. And so I have people like that here with me today, and so I have those also out there, Naiji, who are watching this. Therefore, these are going to be more momentum for me. So when you see my hands moving in this way, that's more momentum. As anytime you see my head on the left, that's going to be momentum as a directive. Head on the right, or yin gesturing, that's going to signify that I am actually using modulation. And that'll be the same for all other Naiji. Another part of the second gear is talking about the difference between directive and adaptive mojos. So not only am I directive as an Naiji, I am subjective because my power is back here, my Nai and my Zai. The first rank power and the third rank power, they are heavier in my psyche. They affect things stronger than the second rank power combined with the fourth rank conscious power. So for that reason, you're going to see natural refinement. Staying still is easy and natural for me. I can even gain a lot of energy by staying still, as opposed to moving. Like if I don't think about it, I don't naturally animate my body. My body animates when I consciously think about it more. As Naiji, we are perceivers. Perception first, because Nai is part of the perception corridor, so that turns on before the discernment corridor, where our Ji is. So our Ji is very important to us, but it comes on after the Nai, and it's subordinate to the Nai. As Naiji, we are interpretive mojos. This means that we use Nai, interpretive power, over V, a literal power. So we have both kinds of perceptions. We have literal and interpretive perceptions, but the interpretive ones, they come first. Although a lot of Naiji are unaware of this, which gets into how we get misread often by people. Whoops, I almost forgot to tell you that being an interpretive means that I have a syncopated rhythm in my face, which is kind of hard to put words to, except that I'm having a second conversation. Can you tell this? All humans kind of have that quality, but it depends on how highly ranked their interpretive power is. Having it as a source power, it's quite pronounced, and you'll notice that I have cunning eyes. These are Nai cunning eyes that also say that I am interpretive. As Naiji, we are also values-based. This means that we have a values-based power over our logic-based power. The values-based power is Ji, logic-based power is Zai, and we have both. We have both kinds of discernment, but one has to take precedent, and for us, it is this. That means that in the face, you're going to see that my emotive expression, it comes up easily above the midline, as all Naiji do. although I can stone face very, very well. Again, most Naiji can stone face very, very well, but that is a modulation, despite how good we are at it. As Naiji, you have all 8 of the powers. We also have Ni, Jai, Zi, and Vi, but those are in our unconscious, and we'll talk about a lot about on this series about how to get in touch with those, both inside yourself and in others, and how to treat them, and how one gets along best with them, so that you can recognize that you actually have all 8 of those powers, and that they're good, and that all the other people that you interact with, they also do have all the 8 powers, and they're good, and they're good in different ratios. So you have a particular ratio, Ni, Ji, Zai, and Vi, that is the conscious portion of your ratio, and then you have the Ni, Jai, Zi, Vi, the unconscious portion of it. But together, you have the whole thing, which is what all humans were built to be, a whole thing. As Naiji, we have Nai back here, but we also have Vi, but Vi being about memories, stored data, exact information, practical considerations. It tends to have a very different worldview agenda than Nai does, but actually it is one agenda, although a portion of it is unconscious and therefore it seems foreign to us. So getting over that foreignness is a big part of the compositional relationship, but it expands your mind greatly, and it really takes you to another level as a hero. How your unconscious powers talk to each other, how the Naiji, how our powers talk to the less conscious Zai and Vi, and how we talk to the even less conscious Ni, Jai, Zi, and Vi. That makes up what we call our peak pathway. All humans have a peak pathway. It's part of being a human. It's part of our human design, which is a methodology for accessing all the powers you have in the most ideal way based on your given design. So for us, our peak pathway is, in conscious order, Nai, Ji, Zai, Vi, Ni, Jai, Zi, Vi. But there's lots of ways of doing it. There's also the energetic order, which is Nai, and then Ni, and then Ji, and then Jai, and then Zai, and Zi, and then Vi, and then Vi. I know, does it look fun? It is fun. It's your psyche. Go have fun with it. A key way we use in Podler theory to help you access the various parts of yourself is through social alchemy groupings. This is a way of understanding how you and your mojo get along with everyone else. So as Naiji, we have certain mojos that we actually have more mathematic familiarity with, and so it'll be easier to have an energetic exchange, but we actually have very rewarding and advantageous ways of exchanging energy with all the mojos. The first social alchemy group that you'll talk about is recognition, and that's actually your own mojo. So for Naiji, that's Naiji Temple, what we're doing right here in this series. It's based on everything about and for the Naiji mojos of planet Earth, including subdivisions of that, such as the Naiji female, the Naiji male, different sexual orientations, and different age groups and rifts and everything. So it's honored completely as a design, and then all its various facets are honored and respected as well. This immediately begins your learning process because other humans, even if they have the exact same design as you, they're radically different people, and they use your design differently than you do, and you learn so much about what you want to do with your own mojo when you see all the variety or taste of incredible variety that is possible with your mojo. So that's how it starts with recognition, but then expands from there and all the others. So I'll go over those real quick, and that'll be a nice way to get you started on what it is Naiji are. I've kind of gone over our powers just real briefly on that, and kind of what we look like real briefly, and now I'm going to give you a little taste of kind of like the work we do in order to help expand your mind. So social alchemy is one of those main tools, and we'll go over the rest of the groupings right now. Recognition is followed up by inspiration, and that's where you have a temple that is dedicated to yourself, us Naiji, go Naiji, but also to the Nijai. The Nijai is the other mojo that makes up the other half of the Nejez storyline. Nejez is actually the combination storyline of the Naiji and Nijai together. So by being around your unconscious portion of your storyline in human form, yes, major upgrades to your psyche, to your well-being, to your enlightenment. So that's what we want to have, and That's the kind of training that is essential for humans to do in order to level up as heroes, and that's what we're going to make happen in Pod Lair. And Naiji Temple, that's our first position. We're going to actually make Naiji Temple. We're going to build it up really cool, and once we build that up really cool, we'll use our sway, our heroic powers, to fill out the rest. And that'll start with the Nijai. So once we've actually rescued a whole bunch of Naiji from the world of not knowing what they are and how to use their powers, we're then going to form a team to go rescue Nijai, so we can then have Nijez. Saving other people, saving our own mojos, saving our inspirational mojo, that's really awesome. But really, just saving people in general is awesome, so let's actually keep saving more people. Kind of like a superhero team. Naijis tend to really be into, you know, superheroes, whether they're comic book or historical or simply artistic or revolutionary. It doesn't matter. The question is they are trying to save the world in some capacity. That's very impressive to us, and we'd like to figure out how we can contribute to saving people. Starting ourselves, our loved ones, and then everyone else. In order to do that, we'll obviously have to have our best powers. Okay, as Naiji, we start off being pretty darn cool with the Nai, and that then is pushed out in the Ji. But there's another power, Z for us, that actually can link up with the Nai, and you can be a visionary. But instead of like a visionary like with the humanistic, so a humanistic visionary is Naiji, we have the Nai Z, and they are visionary logicians. So their powers really stack up great with ours. We tend to have dialogues that get along well, and we can profit from each other's abilities and where they shore up our weak spots. So we get along really well, but we can really fill in weak spots of each other's, which is excellent. Inverse Mojo. In this series, you'll hear me talking a lot about the direct romantics, what we call the Durams, you know, for short, and I'll straight with you. And that is the Naiji, what we are, us Naiji, but also we have some very close compadres who are the Ji Nai. And they actually share a very strong bond with us because they have the same momentum compound. They also have the same modulation compound, just in a different ratio. And so they help us expand ourselves a great deal, particularly in our objective powers, and we can help them a great deal with their subjective powers because we are so closely designed, but we do actually have that crucial but very special difference that actually allows us to be like really great and special friends for each other. There are all kinds of groupings, so these groupings are not just on individuals, like for example a Naiji with a Jinai or Naiji with a Naizi. It gets larger groupings, so you can have any size grouping until you include all humans. So we'll start with getting into the quartets. We're part of a source song quartet called the Nez Alpha. You'll hear me throwing that term around a lot. Oh, that's Nez Alpha, or something of that nature, like that person is Nez Alpha, or that's so Nez Alpha. Okay, that's actually because that means that you have Nai or Ni as your top power, which means your unconscious genius also has Nai or Ni as its source power, whatever one you don't have consciously. And for that reason, all the mojos that are Nez Alpha, the Nai Ji, the Nai Z, and then the Ni Jai and Ni Zai, those mojos actually share a love for change. They get excited by change and pretty much have the lowest tolerance for repetition. So the special bond we have, we bond on being changelings, and it's fun to actually have all these little fun clubs that you can be in. So that's kind of like the club of like your source power. Actually, technically, it's the club of your source power channel. Your source power club, that would be, for example, being the same source, like the Nai Alpha, Nai Ji, and Nai Z. Next, you have the storyline quartet. This is another one we'll talk about a lot for the Naiji is romantic. You'll hear me saying romantic this, romantic that, and what it means particularly here is a grouping of social alchemy that includes all the mojos that actually have a interpretive power as their main perception and a values-based power as their main discernment. So that includes the Durams we talked about, the Naiji and the Ji Nai, but also includes the Adrams, the adaptive romantics, the Nijai and the Jai Ni. So they have a kind of special connection based on having those two channels be the ones that they favor consciously. And so we'll talk about that a great deal, how they share certain sensitivities and certain special rewards in the world. There are a few more the social alchemy groupings, at least 20 main ones that we talk about. Some of them we talk about more than others, particularly in certain contexts. But for example, when it comes to production, there's a thing called change flow, and as we are Naiji, we're part of the first wave, which means we like things when they change a lot. I was also mentioned being Nez Alpha, so the 4 mojos that are Nez Alpha are the same 4 mojos that are in the first wave of change flow, because of that propensity for change and that aversion to staying the same or to repetition. We actually call it the special club. That's actually when the language that you speak primarily energetically and the environment you favor most naturally are the same as other mojos. So as Naiji, we share the fact that we, as far as a language, we speak or understand the perception language of interpretiveness, pattern-based perceptions. And the environment that we like to be in to do our pattern surfing is a subjective one. So we tend to prefer a more reflective, lower stimulus environment in order to do our interpretive pattern-based perceiving. These mojos include the Naiji and Naizi we mentioned before, but also the Jaini and the Zaini. As Naiji, we actually have the perception power of Nai as our main one. That's how we see the universe, kind of in insightful, cunning angles, in intuitive hunches and perceptions. There are 4 mojos that do that, the Naiji, the Naizi, but also the Zinai and the Jinai. So all 4 of those mojos use that Nai cunning, and by seeing how different people use the cunning, that can be very, very helpful to us. Then you have discernment. As Naiji, our primary form of discernment is Ji, although many of us have very, very developed Zai. The Ji is interpersonal dynamics, things of that nature, figuring out what people want, why they want them, and how you can affect them in different ways based on that, that understanding. So that includes the Naiji and the Jinai, but also includes the Vaiji and the Ji Vai. They use a different perception power, Vai, but they also share that their main discernment power is Ji, that interpersonal dynamics that concern with the tribe, with one's place in the tribe, things of that nature. So seeing our discernment done in a way different for us or for a different agenda helps to awaken us in how we can use our Ji better, and also what the totality of Ji is for the tribe. Because all the Ji mojos, it's natural to actually think that your way of using Ji is the way. But clearly there's at least 4 distinct ways just among the 4 Ji mojos. Another group you'll hear talk about a lot is the hunters, or the worldview map mojos. Those are the mojos that actually have a power back here as their primary one. That's the Naiji, the Naizi, but also the Vaiji and Vaizi. All 4 of these mojos are hunters, and they share a common bond, a common way of being, although they also are vastly different because what they're hunting is different. So they share commonality being hunters, but what they're hunting, very, very different. A few of the groups that we actually talk about a great deal being Naiji, or you'll hear me speaking about a great deal, as being shades of consciousness. Those are the 4 mojos that have the same 4 conscious powers than we do, but in very different ratios. So the Naiji, the Jinai, but also the Zai V and the V Zai. These mojos are shades of our consciousness, and again, we learn a lot about ourselves and how our powers work by observing them and interacting with them in a positive way. So this is a little taste of what we'll be doing here in Naiji Temple, a little orientation. We're going to have just a couple more episodes of orientation to give you an idea of what we do here. It's quite extensive, so if you're Naiji, this is the best place you can be. I welcome you, and if you have any questions, I look forward to hearing about them, and my people will bring them to my attention, and I will answer them to the best of my abilities, because I'm really eager to meet the heroic Naiji of planet Earth and be friends with you. And so this temple is my gift, and the start of what I hope will be an amazing, unprecedentedly awesome, heroic, super spiffy adventure. An adventure that only comes from having good friends that actually want to save the world. So let's do it. Let's actually figure out what the world needs together and then go save it together.